Hello there, my name is Mark and I'm here to talk about Menti.com, which is a form of online response system which I've been using quite successfully with students in seminars over the last few months. My reason for using Menti was threefold really. I wanted to try and engage students before seminars, I wanted to engage students and get their responses during seminars, and quite importantly as well, I wanted to engage students after seminars so that I could not only evaluate the learning but also develop myself as a professional and get some good feedback on what I could do to improve. It's quite scary doing that actually, but it's been quite successful so far. I use Menti.com as a form of flipped learning in a pre-session way for two reasons really. Firstly, I may present the students with a provocative question or a situation which would evoke a response. All of the responses are anonymised and students can't see each other's responses initially. When the question is presented, they can access this on any device and have 140 characters or less, similar to a Twitter feed, to generate a response. The reason that this is quite powerful is because I then use that pre-session input to identify misconceptions, prior learning, previous understanding, etc. And I actually use it as part of the seminar proper itself. So quite often my seminars begin with a reflection upon what the student said during this pre-session input. It's been quite powerful because it engages students not only before the session but also lets them sort of see each other's answers and see each other's inputs before any kind of verbal discussion or before any group work has to take place. The second reason I use Menti as a pre-session input is actually to help me to develop my course content and to develop the outcome or the learning intentions of that particular seminar. So I may often ask students what they expect to learn or what their intended outcomes would be from a particular seminar. I try to keep the use of Menti during seminars to less than 3 instances per afternoon, for example, because I don't want to overplay its usage and I don't want to rely too much on an electronic form of communication and detract from a verbal form of communication. I want it to aid learning, not replace learning. It's been really useful for allowing students who would normally feel under pressure or normally feel overpowered by their peers. It's been really useful to allow them to have a voice and to actually articulate their thoughts during the session itself. It can also be really useful if you're wanting to develop a really concise definition or a concise explanation of something, as you can adapt the kind of format in which you ask the questions, and you can also further develop the output and the way that the graphics are displayed on the screen. So for example, I could ask the students to rate a particular methodology for me and assign it a number or allow them to drag on a graph somewhere. And this outcome would be directly demonstrated to them on the screen itself. And that in itself is actually quite a powerful tool, because not only are we then engaging students proactively, we're also valuing all of their input. At each of the points that I use Menti during the sessions, I provide quite an amount of time after their input to discuss their input and what the learning from that may be and what the outcomes of that may be. And because nobody's had to say anything unless they want to, those opinions can be quite varied, but the anonymity of it is powerful, and we can then refer back to it, discuss why people may have those opinions, why people may feel that particular way, and how we can develop that learning. Through my use of Menti, I've also developed a post-seminar reflection too, or a post-seminar question, which students are asked to engage with. This has taken quite a while to bed in. When I first started asking students to respond to something after a seminar, my take-up rate was very, very low and very poor, because students often considered that once one seminar had finished, the learning had finished at that point until the next seminar, several days or a week or so later. So it was a culture change that I had to try and instigate. My initial responses to a post-seminar question were down below at 5 to 10%. However, as I began to embed this more and more, this has now increased to between 50 and 60% of students who regularly respond to a post-seminar question. This post-seminar question is open to response between the time of one seminar finishing and the next one starting, because some students need a little bit longer, as everyone does, to actually take on board new thinking and new methodology. They may not have an immediate response to what they have learned straight after the seminar. That may not come until 2 or 3 days later, once they have had a chance to formulate their opinions more and perhaps do some more reading. I've also used the post-seminar sessions as a form of evaluation for not only the concepts learned in that session, but the methodologies that I have used and the teaching style that I have adopted, or the facilitation style that I have adopted during that session. And it is quite brave to ask students immediately afterwards, or very soon afterwards, to anonymously comment on not only what they have learned, but how they have learnt it and how effective they consider that learning to be. I have found some challenges to using Menti. There's obviously the challenge of internet access, but it's very rare that a student does not have a device or does not have internet access. There is also the perceived challenge of students putting inappropriate content on a visible space that you then share with a number of people. And you will always get inappropriate comments made, whether that be verbally or whether it be written down on the wall or on the screen for all to see. And I think it's worth taking that risk, because it's down to you as a professional and as a facilitator as to how you handle those inappropriate comments. As an evaluation of flipped learning using Menti, I would say that it's actually been quite a successful time for me, because it engages students who may ordinarily sit there quietly in the corner not wanting to raise their hand. It gives everyone an equal voice, because everyone's opinions are valued and we discuss them all openly. And it facilitates an approach to seminars and learning which is not purely restricted to the physical environment of being there. While it's no replacement for seminars in any way, or no replacement for face-to-face learning at all, it's a method with which students can engage before a session, during a session, and after a session, and it almost closes a loop of learning whereby we illustrate to students that this is of huge importance, which they then procedurally carry on in their own placements and their own teaching.